Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. The global number of coronavirus cases has topped 67 million, while the virus has claimed over 1.5 billion lives. Britain says it will produce up to 4 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as the country's death toll exceeds 61,000. The disease has claimed more than 140,000 lives in India, while its caseload has exceeded 9.6 million. Pakistan has registered nearly 3,800 cases, 37 deaths overnight, and taking the death toll to 8,398. In the United States, state of Georgia Republican governor has rejected President Donald Trump's push to overturn the election results. The deputy governor said the state is not going to move the goalposts at this point in the election. He added Governor Brian Kemp will not succumb to any pressure to call a special session of the state legislature. The statement comes a day after President Trump asked Kemp to overturn Biden's win in the state. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has vowed accountability for the families of Christchurch mosque attack victims. Her statement comes ahead of the public release of a major report into the country's worst massacre. An Australian white supremacist was sentenced to life in prison without parole in August for killing 51 Muslim worshippers. Romanian Prime Minister Ludovic Orban has claimed victory in Sunday's parliamentary elections. However, an exit poll shows the opposing Socialist Democrat Party leading by a thin margin. And in football, AC Milan beat Sampdoria 2-1 in Serie A encounter at the Louis de Ferrazes. After a scrappy first half, Milan finally broke Sampdoria's resistance when Frank Cassi scored from a penalty in the 45th minute. Unbeaten in this league this season, Milan stay 5 points clear at the top. Well, these were the headlines. News is coming in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. The global number of coronavirus cases has topped 67 million, with over 1.5 million deaths. The United States remains the worst affected country, while India has the second highest tally of COVID-19 cases in the world. More on coronavirus in this report.
While mass vaccination drives against the deadly coronavirus kindle hopes of the beginning of the end of the pandemic, deaths and new cases worldwide are shooting through the roof. U.S. President Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has also tested positive for the coronavirus. Reporting more than 200,000 daily cases for the fourth consecutive day, the U.S. government says the country is facing the worst event in its history.
This is not just the worst public health event. This is the worst event that this country will face, not just from a public health side. Yet, we know what behaviors spread the virus, and we know how to change those behaviors to stop spreading the virus.
Over in Europe, testing has been suspended in parts of the Austrian Alps after massive amounts of snow fell in the region. Italy, one of the worst hit parts of Europe, announced more travel restrictions for the Christmas period. Britain says it will procure up to 4 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as the country's death toll exceeds 61,000. Meanwhile, a tiny Belgian town has become the ground zero in the fight against coronavirus as Pfizer turns the town into one of its largest production sites in the world.
We always say that we are going to save the world, and that's the feeling in our town. The people are glad that we can give a contribution and to leave this difficult period for a lot of people.
Over in Asia, Serum Institute of India, world's largest vaccine producer by volume, has sought emergency use authorization for AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. India has reported nearly 33,000 cases and 391 fatalities in the last 24 hours, while Indonesia received its first shipment of vaccine from China as the government prepares a mass inoculation program.
Well, in Pakistan, 37 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, pushing the death toll to 8,205. Health officials say more than 3,700 people have tested positive for the virus overnight. They say with 39,000 tests conducted across Pakistan, the positivity rate has reached 9.7%. The Health Ministry says there are more than 55,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It said out of more than 420,000 countrywide cases, over 356,000 have recovered. Now, Pakistan says developing states need $2 to $3 trillion to revive their economies in the wake of COVID-19's adverse impact. In an interview, Pakistan's envoy to United Nations, Munir Akram, said developing states do not have financial capacity to recover from the pandemic. Munir Akram said economic collapse is confronting a number of vulnerable countries. He said consequences of the developing world's economic collapse will be devastating for the world economy as a whole. Akram added in a bid to keep the economies afloat during the pandemic, many countries are falling into debt. He said the developed world needs to take urgent actions to meet the needs of developing countries. Otherwise, it will be a humanitarian disaster. Now, in India, one person has died and 350 have been hospitalized by an unidentified mystery illness in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh. The cause of the disease has not yet been determined. The unknown disease has become a cause of grave concern for the people. Doctors say people sick with the disease include both young and old alike. Medical practitioners say they have observed symptoms of dizziness, nausea, headache and epilepsy in the victims. The Health Minister of Andhra Pradesh, Alakali Krishna Srinivas, says medical help is being provided to the patients.
Doctors are trying to find the reason for the en masse sickness. All the patients are stable now. A girl has been sent to Vijayawada for further treatment. A team of doctors have gone to the area where the people fell sick and are conducting medical tests in every house in that area.
Also, the Indian authorities say no viral infections were detected and all patients tested negative for COVID-19. Now, moving to the U.S. state of Georgia, where the Republican governor has rejected President Donald Trump's push to overturn the election results. In an interview, the deputy governor said the state is not going to move goalposts at this point in the election. Jeff Duncan said Governor Brian Kemp will not succumb to any pressure to call a special session of the state legislature. Duncan said he voted and campaigned for the U.S. president, but he did not win the state of Georgia. He stated the Constitution is still in place and Biden would be sworn in as 46th U.S. president. The statement comes a day after President Trump asked Kemp to overturn Biden's win in the state. Meanwhile, President-elect Joe Biden has picked California Attorney General Xavier Becerra to be his health secretary. Moving on, the top U.S. Navy official in the Middle East says America has reached an uneasy deterrence with Iran. Tensions remain high over Iran's nuclear program after months of regional attacks and seizures at the sea. Vice Admiral Sam Paparo, who oversees the Navy's 5th Fleet based in Bahrain, was speaking to a think tank. He described having a healthy respect for both Iran's Navy and its paramilitary Revolutionary Guard. He said he found Iranian activity at sea to be cautious and circumspect and respectful. Meanwhile, Tehran said Iran's naval forces have always professionally conducted themselves. A spokesperson for Iran's UN mission questioned what the U.S. Navy was doing 7,000 miles from its territorial waters. Meanwhile, peace negotiators from the Afghan government and the Taliban side met for a second time in Doha to discuss the agenda of talks. The meeting comes after the two sides agreed on procedural rules for the negotiations. Both sides have expressed optimism about moving forward to finalize the agenda. Earlier, U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad in a tweet called the meetings about the agenda crucial. He reiterated that both sides must work to end the war in the country. Now, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has vowed accountability for the families of Christchurch mosque attack victims. Her statement comes ahead of the public release of a major report into the country's worst massacre. The inquiry looked at whether there are any failings by government agencies and if the mass shooting could have been prevented. Authorities were criticized for ignoring repeated warnings from the Muslim community that hate crimes against them were escalating. The report contains interviews with hundreds of people, including security agencies, Muslim community leaders and international experts. An Australian white supremacist was sentenced to life in prison without parole in August for killing 51 Muslim worshippers. Meanwhile, in Belarus, police have arrested more than 300 protesters demanding resignation of President Alexander Lukashenko. The demonstrations prompted the police to detain over 300 people. Thousands marched in remote residential areas of the capital Minsk, chanting slogans and waving flags with the opposition symbol. Military vehicles and uninformed men in helmets were seen on the streets of Minsk. The Interior Ministry says the detainees were arrested for violating the COVID-19 protocols against mass gatherings. President Lukashenko has rejected demands of the demonstrators, calling them a West-sponsored agenda. The East European country has been rocked by mass demonstrations since the presidential election in August. Now in Romania, Romania Prime Minister Ludovic Orban has claimed victory in Sunday's parliamentary elections. However, one exit poll showed the opposition Socialist Democrat leading by a thin margin. Polls show the centrist USR+ Orban's likely coalition partner at roughly 16% of the vote. Orban is expected to get the nomination to form a coalition government from President Klaus Iohannis. Even if the final results show him slightly behind the socialist, turnout was lowest since Romania shed communism in a bloody revolt in 1989. Now, the election is crucial in determining the developing country's future in mainstream Europe. Now, Pakistan has recently inked an agreement with a private British automobile firm for the manufacturing of electric buses. This will save up to $31 million worth of fuel expenses on an annual basis. More in this report by our correspondent Manahil Ahmed.
Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, will be the first city to have environment-friendly electric transport by next year. The draft of agreement was signed by Science and Technology Minister Fawad Chaudhry and the British firm CEO. The minister says a Swiss charging station company is expected to build a manufacturing plant in Pakistan.
We have at least two big electric bus manufacturers who are establishing manufacturing in Pakistan. Likewise, we have the charging station company, Swiss charging station company, who has now shown interest to put up a manufacturing plant as far as EV chargers are concerned. So that will be another big industry, and I think these two will change Pakistan's future export market.
In the first phase, the British firm will manufacture electric buses for Pakistan, while in the second, more crucial phase, it will help the country in the production of vehicles locally. CEO of the automobile manufacturing firm Azam Khan said the company will also introduce 3 and 2 electric wheelers in the country.
We have come up with a project of electric buses, 3-wheelers and 2-wheelers. So we are starting with electric buses first, and we'll be having an assembly plant in Pakistan.
Director of the firm Saqib Noor said through their projects, they aim to achieve zero emissions.
Our slogan is zero emission, to attain the zero emission and social impact through bringing the ecosystem. And for that, we have the e-mobility, the electric cars, and the e-housing as well. So we have but at the moment we are starting with Pakistan with the e-mobility.
The initial plan is to roll out 30 electric buses across Islamabad, hoping to make it the region's first city with all-electric public transport. In future, other cities like Lahore and Karachi will also welcome emission-free transport. Manahil Ahmed, Indus News, Islamabad.
Still news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Well, Welcome back. Now, an Indian jeweler has set a Guinness World Record for most diamonds in a single ring. There are more than 12,000 diamonds in the ring, weighing 165.45 grams. More about this ring in this report.
With a hope to receive international recognition, Renani Jewels in India has made a ring with 12,638 diamonds. They have dubbed the ring as the Marigold, meaning the ring of prosperity. It was Renani Jewels and Managing Director Harshad Bansal's dream to achieve a Guinness World Records title.
This ring took around 2.5 to 3 years of my life. How can I put a price on 3 years of my life? It is priceless for us.
Bansal said all of the diamonds on the ring were of the best qualities used in jewelry worldwide. It took the jewelers 3 years to conceptualize and design the record-making ring. They used 38.08 carat natural diamonds for the ring.
When I was doing a course for jewelry designing around 2.5 years ago, this idea came to me to make a ring which has more than 10,000 diamonds. I started conceptualizing the ring then, when I was learning. Slowly, I made several designs. Family also supported me, and it finally happened.
The previous record was set with 7,801 diamonds.
Well, now in an updated pagan rite COVID-19 mass now adorn healing trees in northern France. When all else fails, people hang them on branches to pray for protection against the pandemic. More about this ritual in this report.
It is a ritual steeped in pagan mystery, updated for the coronavirus age. Sick people in northern France occasionally leave garments in healing trees in the hope of a cure, following a tradition that persists since pre-Roman times.
Here we are in front of a ritual tree where people ask for healing. It's a tree that dates back to antiquity, before the Roman times. People would come here to hang clothing which has been in contact with the body parts that need to be healed.
But locals who pay attention have noticed a recent change.
The new development in 2020 is COVID masks. What's interesting about the COVID masks is that all this clothing hanging from an ancient ritual are linked to finding a cure, to heal an illness. But I think hanging the masks is a preventive act to protect oneself from potential harm.
Known as rag trees in Ireland, one of several other countries where the practices survives, they show pagan and Christian influences. Despite appearances which can be disconcerting, they still bring people hope. People turn to the healing tree when medicine has reached its limits and when science has let them down.
Well, now SpaceX has successfully launched an upgraded Dragon cargo spacecraft on a resupply mission to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Falcon 9 was launched from the Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex in Florida. The spacecraft is expected to dock autonomously with the Zenith port of the space station's Harmony module today. The Dragon, flying a mission designated CRS-21, is carrying over 2,900 kilograms of cargo. The upgraded Dragon capsule can now carry around 20% more volume than the previous version. The launch marks a milestone 100th successful launch of a Falcon 9 over 101 missions for SpaceX. Well, Iran says it's all set to produce and sell crude oil at full capacity within the next 3 months. Iran has instructed the oil ministry to prepare installations for the production ahead of a possible easing of U.S. sanctions. State media quoted President Hassan Rouhani as saying Iran exported over 2 million barrels a day before U.S. exit the nuclear deal. President-elect Joe Biden has said he will return to the pact if Tehran returns to strict compliance. It's estimated that Iran exports less than 300,000 barrels of oil per day compared to a peak of 2.8 million in 2018. This comes amid reports that Iran is sending its biggest fleet of tankers to Venezuela in defiance of U.S. sanctions. Now, China's exports have seen fastest ever monthly growth in November as its factories continue to benefit from the global lockdowns. Exports rocketed by 21.1% from November previous year, with imports rising by 4.5%. China's customs agency says shipments in November surged at the fastest pace in 3 years. Now, Beijing's trade surplus for November jumped to $75.42 billion, up by almost 103% from 2019, the largest since 1981. Improved domestic demand and higher commodity prices helped the trade figures surpass forecasts by analysts. Now, the world's second-largest economy has recorded a growth in exports for the 6th month in a row now. Meanwhile, stocks in the Asia-Pacific are trading mixed as investors await the outcome of the first COVID-19 immunization drives. Mainland Chinese stocks slipped 0.5% under the flat line, while the Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong tumbled around 1.5%. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 and the Topix Index also fell over 0.5%. South Korea's Kospi, however, gained marginally. Australian bourses moved into positive territory as well, with the ASX 200 adding over 0.5%. Now in sports, AC Milan beat Sampdoria 2-1 in a Serie A encounter at Luigi Ferraris. Milan are now 5 points clear on the top of the table, followed by Inter Milan and Napoli. Frank Kessie put the visitors ahead in the first half, while Samu Casilejo doubled Milan's lead in the 77th minute. Albin Ekdal did put one back, but Sampdoria failed to find an equaliser. In another fixture, Napoli thrashed Crotone 4-0 at Stadio Ezio Sida. Lorenzo Insigne bent Napoli ahead at the interval, and second-half goals from Hirving Lozano, Diego Demme and Andrea Petana completed the scoreline for Napoli. Meanwhile, Liverpool thrashed Wolverhampton Wanderers 4-0 to go second in the Premier League table. The defending champions are now tied with the leaders Tottenham with 24 points from 11 fixtures. Mohamed Salah gave Liverpool the lead in the first half after Wolves defender Connor Cody misjudged a long ball from Jordan Henderson. Second-half goals from Giorgiano, Wijnaldum, Joel Matip and Nelson Semedo made the scoreline 4-0 at the final whistle. Now, some 2,000 spectators were allowed to Anfield for the first time since March. In another fixture, Spurs beat Arsenal 2-0 at home. Son Heung-min and Harry Kane scored goals for the hosts. Now, Pakistan's cricket team has been cleared to leave managed isolation in Christchurch after the 5th round of COVID testing. The team had their training exemptions revoked last week after 10 people out of the 53-member squad tested positive. Pakistan are head to Queenstown for intra-squad warm-up matches before the 2020 series starts on December 18th. They will leave behind one member who will join them after completing his managed isolation period. Pakistan will play 3 2020 matches and 2 tests in New Zealand, while a Pakistan A tour is being run concurrently. Earlier, Pakistan announced an 18-member squad for their 2020 series. The 3-match series will begin on December 18th and end on December 22nd. Babar Azam will lead the Green team, while Shahdab Khan will serve as the vice-captain. Retired boxing champion Floyd Mayweather Jr. has announced to take on YouTuber Logan Paul in a special exhibition fight in February 2021. The former 5-weight boxing world champion Mayweather ended his career unbeaten in 50 bouts. Mayweather last fought in 2017, beating MMA star Conor McGregor in one of the richest bouts in boxing history. The fight is the latest exhibition bout featuring aging former champions and celebrities. Former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson returned to the ring last month to face Roy Jones Jr. in a charity exhibition fight. The bout was ruled a draw. Russian as well as some international riders performed stunts on motorcycles and snowmobiles during an extreme sports festival in Moscow. Despite the coronavirus, the annual event took place with the measures restricting the number of spectators. Details in this report.
Keeping the spirit to live wildly alive, Russia held the annual Extreme Sports Festival in Moscow for the 14th time. At a time when coronavirus pandemic has restricted lives, the festival was held with limited capacity. However, not all overseas riders who usually come to the festival from abroad were able to attend this year due to a travel ban.
We all understand this. Despite the really tough restrictions, I would like to say special thanks to the sports department, to all the people involved in this, who despite such difficulties organize events and support sports. Yes, we are facing various difficulties, even with the arrival of the athletes from abroad, so that they can take part in this big festival. Unfortunately, some of them did not manage to do that. I hope this is for a very short period of time.
A total of 131 participants demonstrated stunts on FMX and BMX bikes, cars, scooters and snowmobiles. Last year, 180 participants came to Moscow for the event. Performers said they hope the pandemic to be over soon so life can return to normal.
So to come here and perform in Moscow, especially with the pandemic as it is at the moment, it's very, very similar. What you guys are experiencing here, we're experiencing exactly the same in the UK and the rest of Europe. We're just starting to come out of it. As long as everybody's sensible, follow the guidelines, you wear your masks when you need to wear your mask.
Russian authorities have not imposed a nationwide lockdown as they did earlier in the pandemic. They are stressing the importance of hygiene and targeting measures in certain regions instead.
And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.